Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. We've got a major storm coming and they keep using words, they meaning the meteorologists and things, they keep using words like historic and once in a generation, impactful, and all these other words that just help you realize that this is not your average storm. And we're not expected to see a lot of snow at all, but we are going to get very debilitating wind chills. And the latest report is -26. So out of everything on the farm, during -26 temps, there's really only two things that I can't manage to bring indoors, and that's my pigs and my bees. I've done as much as I can with my bees. I'm about to go out and do just a tiny bit more, but really I just want to see that all of the colonies are flying so I can see which ones didn't make it through what we're about to encounter. I called our local beekeeping supply store. It's where we got our original colonies of bees, and they told me to expect heavy losses. So I'm gonna do what I can to make the losses minimal, but it's not looking good, guys. So I'm not in my normal bee suit. I kind of don't think that I need it right now. I'm not opening any of the colonies, and that's an important thing to mention. I want to make sure that I'm not breaking the propolis seal that the bees have created that basically seals up any cracks that could allow wind to get in the colonies. I have some foam insulation boards down here, and I'm going to be adding them just to the top of the colonies that don't already have an insulated inner cover. And I'm not going to be opening the colony at all. I'm just literally going to be putting it underneath the cinder blocks right here. So it looks like we have flight and activity out of all of the colonies right now, which is good. It's what I would expect to see right now. It's only the end of December and it does stay relatively warm here year round, and they do have lots of resources on them. Looks like kind of a mess here behind the colonies, but this is actually a good thing, and some of it is by design. So this big pallet structure that's fallen over here, this is actually the shooting bench that my husband uses. He hunts behind it when it's hunting season, and now that it's no longer hunting season, he's set it down on its face here just so it doesn't blow around in some of the winds that we get here. And it's acting like a windbreak to my colonies, which is excellent, because really the main issue isn't necessarily the temperatures that we're going to be experiencing. It's the fact that the blowing wind is going to whisk away heat from the colonies, and they're going to be expending a lot of energy trying to keep warm. Our worst winds are going to be coming from the west, and so early this morning, before it got warm enough for the girls to be flying, I set up this windbreak here to really just dampen the impact of the winds that we're supposed to be getting. 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts, -26. This is all I've got, so I pray that it's enough. So I've actually got two T-posts, one here and one here, jammed into the ground. I put fencing up and then an old trampoline net that we have, and then more fencing on top of that to hopefully hold everything still and sturdy and keep the hives out of the worst of the wind. So with that, plus the insulation, plus the fact that I know they have good reserves and good population, that's the most that I can do. And I feel kind of helpless, but like, this is nature, isn't it? I mean, kind of. These are captive bred honeybees and captive kept honeybees, but I've done the best I can for them, and now it's completely out of my hands at this point what happens. Oh no. No, sir. One of the things that the National Weather Service has said about this storm is that with wind chills like that, frostbite can occur in 30 minutes. And so, you know, I have to think about myself when I'm outside doing my chores, obviously, but it really breaks my heart to see that, because There's some animals that I have out here that really don't have much of a choice but to be out in that for not just 30 minutes, for hours, days. And I have to do what I can in order to protect them from that wind chill. So my pigs here, they're the second thing that I am most worried about. They're probably the first thing that I'm most worried about above the bees, because I think the bees, they're good. I think they have a lot. I've done all I can for them. So the draftiness of our barn is going to be what's going to make or break the comfortability and whether or not these animals get any kind of hypothermia. So we are going to be working on the pig situation. I originally thought that just putting the pigs together in a group was going to be all that's needed. That and some straw to keep them warm. But I think that with this amount of cold coming in, that I need to do a little bit more with their little corner of the barn. I can definitely take this stuff off now that we're not near the bees. So I keep these nitrile gloves on me when I don't feel like putting on my big goat skin gloves and when I'm really not going to be getting in the colonies, but I still can't assure that a bee isn't going to come and try to sting my hands. These obviously, they're really thin, they're not stinger proof, but I guess the bees have a hard time getting a grip on the nitrile gloves, so they can't like grip you and then turn around and sting you. So that's what I had those on for. And I think the veil here speaks for itself. Don't want any bees in my face. It's actually pretty warm here today. The high is 48 today. Our low is 40 for the morning, and then the cold weather hits and we can go from 40 to -26 really fast. And I think it's the speed at which we just dip really far down that's going to be what really affects things as well. Hello, dear. So like I mentioned in the last video, this here is our west wall. This is the wall that's going to be taking the brunt of these really cold winds. Clearly, the wall kind of looks like a cheese grater. That doesn't make me comfortable with the lows that we are due to experience. So we have some work to do before the cold weather sets in. So right now, it is Wednesday at the time of recording, and things could really start to be going south about this time tomorrow on Thursday afternoon. And so we really need to get this wall squared away because I'm not comfortable with it being the way that it is. So some people who live in the Midwest and colder areas, Canada, Alaska, you may be thinking, Heather, you're just wimping out. It's fine, they're fine. And I know people have it colder a lot more frequently for a longer duration than what we're experiencing. However, this is very abnormal for us. And so ourselves and our animals are not as adapted. And like I mentioned just a couple minutes ago, the drastic change is what's going to really have an impact. You can see the nest that the piggies made to lay down in. But this big doorway, I need to at least close this up. So I think I'm going to put over some B-roll of Levi and I closing this up. The plan right now is to cover the top half tonight so that it's ready to go, and then tomorrow evening when the pigs have had enough and they've decided to come in out of the weather for the day, we're actually just going to literally screw a sheet of plywood over the bottom so that they can't get out. But it will be okay. Our worst forecasted temperatures are between like sometime in the evening on Thursday and noon on Friday. So normally I get down to the barn and feed between 10 and 11 a.m. And so noon, it's not that much later. They're gonna be fine in here. They've got their heated water bowl, and I think it's going to be best just to shut them in here. So I'm seeing a little bit of talk out there on the interwebs about how people are kind of excited to see some of these lower temperatures because it means that Some of your regular garden pests that like to basically go dormant in the soil may actually die because this really cold snap is probably going to be more than they can handle for this region. For example, we've got squash bugs really bad, and we also have the squash vine borer, and those things do go dormant underneath the soil and underneath leaves and things, and they could get a serious hit. And while that's fine and dandy to think about and get excited about, you have to realize that there are many more beneficial insects that overwinter in the exact same way. And just like my honeybees in this area, they're not conditioned to those kinds of temperatures, and they haven't had the foresight to prepare and whatever. So really the beneficials could also be impacted, and I don't think that that's going to be a good thing. Now, a lot of the crops that we grow for our own food here are self-pollinating. Like, for an example, tomatoes and peppers, they don't necessarily need a pollinator in order to bear fruit. Really, all you have to do is like shake the plant, and that's usually more than enough. But even with things that are self-pollinating like that, they get a better fruit set when they do have pollinators present. Like, we can get excited about the fact that we may have fewer pests in the garden, but we probably will also have fewer pollinators due to this, so keep that in mind. So Tumnus here, he puts on the best winter coat out of all of the goats. Goats like to grow nice thick coats in the winter. Tali here has gotten quite a nice coat on her, but it's nothing compared to Tumnus. Tumnus will actually put on a layer of cashmere, and it's quite the fluffy layer of cashmere. It's kind of hard to tell that it's there until it gets to be springtime and he starts shedding it, but let's see if he'll show us. So he is a little bit dusty, but do you see this in here? Look at all that. See all that fluff? He has the best undercoat that I have ever seen. You boy, you are the least of my worries. You are. Let's see if we can find Tumnus's mama though. Rory. Rory is going to be 8, and last year Rory spent much of the winter shivering. So she did go through something hormonal at the end of last year after she had her kids. She did blow some of her coat. This year she's not blowing her coat, but come here, Rory. She's right here. We'll get a little bit closer to her when we can weasel our way in here. But Rory's not growing a nice plush winter coat like I like to see. Rory's coat though, it's quite thin. I guess there's a little bit of cashmere in there. She's got some dry skin too. Hi Mars. Hi Mars. So it's gonna start getting bad here Thursday in the evening, and then it's going to get worse and worse overnight. 3-4 a.m. are some of the coldest temps that we're gonna have. Guess who's not sleeping? Me, because I could never sleep wondering if Rory is okay or any of the goats. So I can easily bring in any suffering goat into the house. I can easily bring in any suffering dog into the house. I actually plan on bringing Buster. He's our livestock guardian who roams the property that's not part of the goat pen. I plan on seeing if I can convince him to come inside that evening, because he does have our porches that he likes to use for shelter. He can go in my mower shed, and usually I keep the rabbitry area of the barn open for him, but I'm going to be closing that to protect the rabbits and the quail in that area. And so if I can convince Buster to come in the house, I'm going to do it. If not, I'm going to leave the mower shed open, and I'm going to be visiting him in the middle of the night as well. I'm going to be out here checking on everything, and it's the only way I know how to operate. Mars here. Mars has bonded with his goat herd. Oftentimes he doesn't realize he's a dog. He thinks he's a goat. So he's gonna be in the barn with his goats. I'll be checking on him just as often as I am checking on everyone else. And if need be, I can drag him indoors too. Yeah. So I think I've managed to do everything that I can at this exact moment. A lot of stuff I kind of want to wait till the last minute to do. Obviously I can't ship the pigs into the barn until the last minute, but I also want to wait until essentially the last minute before I add in more straw. We are well stocked on straw, we're well stocked on pine shavings, we're well stocked on hay, but I want to make sure that when I lay that down, it's going to be basically at the last possible moment, just so everything stays as dry as possible. What are you doing? What was that? That was quite the stretch, my dear. Now she's gonna be camera shy. Talia. Tali. What are you doing? So the piggy's bed is nice and dry. I will be adding to that tomorrow at some point, and then we'll be shutting them in here. One of the crazy things to think about is it's going to be potentially negative 26 in the next couple days, and then it's Christmas, and then is New Year's, and New Year's Day is supposed to be 61 for a high. So that kind of yo-yo back to warm is also no good. So we do have penicillin on hand and other things that can handle pneumonia. So we're just gonna have to watch and wait and see and do the best that we can. I guess the silver lining to all of this is I don't have to worry about our freezers. We have a few outside freezers and all of them should stay well frozen. That's for sure.